Dave here with Half Dozen Customs. We got something new in the shop today. This is the se-fas-pee 250D multi-process welder. It says it'll do just about everything but finish your project for you. We're going to unbox it and take a look at what's included and put it to the test right here in the shop. Stick around, we'll see how it handles real projects and whether or not it's worthy of a spot in your shop. First thing out of the box is a machine. It's not too heavy, but it does have a little bit of weight to it, which is good. I don't like to see super light machines. That means that there's at least some build to it. Now let's see what's in the box. First thing we got is the instruction manual, and you have a wheel in here with a couple different sizes of wire feet on here. We have our MIG torch. This feels good. This has some weight to it, which I like to see. And there's also a little key in here for your different bits and adjustments, and it comes with an extra tip. Next thing out of here is your stick lead and ground cable. This does feel a little light, but it seems like it's decently made. There's some good spring in this handle, decent spring in the ground, and last but not least, we have our feed line for our bottle. Okay, now that we got this all unboxed, let's go through and take a look at what it gives us. So it gives us a line for running your MIG mix, which is your gas welding. It's a decent line. You can run the big bottle on it, or you can have the bottle set off to the side and bring the welder over with you. They give you your welding cable, or what I call a whip. This will be used for your flux core, and also your MIG mix and your MIG mag. They give you a little wrench with it and one extra tip. They give you your MMA handle or your stick handle, and they give you a ground. So today we will be going through the MMA, the flux core, and the MIG mix. This welder also does spool gun and lift TIG, which those items are sold separate. We do not have those here today. Those videos will be done at a later date as we get those. If you're interested in those items, we have the link for the TIG stuff, the TIG welding gun and all that. We will put that link down below. This machine is a 220 machine only. They do make a 110 and 220 machine, which is a 205. This is the 250. So if you're looking for one that does both 110 and 220, check out the 205. It does the exact same things this machine does, just this one is 220 only. It also gives us an extra MIG wheel here, which has two different sizes on it, and it does have one in here as well that has two different sizes on that. So you have 4 different sizes of wire that you can run through here. So let's turn this on. We got it plugged into the 220, and we can check out the very nice digital setup that it has. You have your adjustment knobs here. They have push buttons that you can go through and push and change stuff. You have your mode button here, which changes through your left TIG, your MIG mag, that is MIG mix, Flux Core, your spool gun, back up to MMA, which is your stick welder, your lift TIG, back down to MIG mag, and you can manually adjust everything. So we'll explain a little bit farther into being able to adjust this as we go. And one thing, when you shut this machine off, it does take about 30 seconds to a minute for your digital setup to shut off. So just so that you're aware, when you go to shut it off and the machine's still on, it does take a few seconds for it to power down. Okay, first thing that we're going to kind of go through here is our options for welding. So our first box that we have here, this is for your MIG mix gas welding. And then we have Flux Core and we have our sticks. So this is a gas wire that I normally use in my shop. It's 0.023. So this is what I use on a daily basis out here. Our next thing here, this is our Flux Core. And this is 0.035. So this is what you're going to use if you're like out in the field and you don't have your bottle with you, or maybe you're going to be using this on your farm and you're not looking to carry your bottle around with you everywhere that you go. This is what you're going to use. And then we also have a couple of sticks here. Now I'm going to be honest with you, it's probably been about 20 years since I've done any stick welding. It's not something that I normally do around here. So I can't give you much information about these different sticks here. I just know that I have a small one and I have a big one. So we have, this is a welding wire brush. This is out of my personal kit. This does not come with the se-fas-pee welder, but you can also pick these up on Amazon if you are interested in them. And something like this would be what you would use when you're out in the field to get you some metal cleaned up. And then after you stick weld and after you Flux Core weld, it is left with slag over the top of your weld, which you would use this pick end of your wire brush here to clean up your weld afterwards, and we will show you that as we go along. The first thing that we are going to work on here is stick welding. So I'm gonna get everything unraveled here and we're gonna plug it in, and I will explain to you the ways that you plug it in and the reasoning behind that. So okay, with what we're doing today, we're just going to be setting it up for your basic electrodes, which is DSEP, which means that your electrode holder here gets plugged into positive and your ground gets plugged into negative, just like any basic welder that you use. They do also have acid electrodes, and if you're going to be using that style of welding, you would switch these where your electrode would go into negative and your ground would go into positive. So we're just going to plug, we'll start with the ground here, and we're going to plug this guy into the negative slot. So there is a little tooth on this guy. So when you put it in and you turn it and it locks itself in. So we have our electrode plugged into positive. We have our ground into negative. Your ground you put on your piece of metal, and then your stick you put into your electrode. Like so. Okay, so for testing this out, I just have two rusty pieces of metal that used to be part of a cattle gate. So if you were out in the field and you needed to weld your cattle gate back together, this works awesome for that. Now I used the wire brush and I just kind of wire brushed around the cut or the break that I'm going to be welding up. And then all I did was I stuck my ground on here and I wiggled it back and forth on the metal pipe so that we can clean it up and get a good ground on it. So I have the big stick in here and I have it set on 130 amps. So you can adjust your amperage. So when you're doing MMA, you hold this button down for 5 seconds. It'll switch it over to VRD, which will pop up right here, and that's what you want for the MMA or the stick welding. Then you use this dial to adjust your amperage. So if you're using this little itty bitty stick, you're gonna want to turn your amperage way down. Maybe around 90. When you go up to the bigger one, you can go all the way up to 150. So we're gonna put it around 130, and we'll check that and see how that welds. So just gonna take your wire brush and you're gonna clean this up. Now this is rusty metal. You're never gonna get rid of all the rust, but that is the joys of stick welding. Okay, that is a nice, good, clean weld. So for the stick welder part of this, as I explained, it's probably been 20 years since I've done any stick welding, but that is a nice weld from this machine. I'm happy with that. I would be happy with welding something together out in my yard with it. That's a go for me. Well, now that we've tested out the MMA or the stick welding, I'm happy with the way that welded. And it's a nice option to have in the shop around here, even though it's not something that I use on a daily basis. It's still nice to have something like that in the shop. So now we're going to disconnect this and we are going to get set up for some flux core welding. So just spin these so that they come out again. Got your ground, got this, came with some Ziploc bags that these can go back into and they can stay safe. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be hooking your whip up. Comes with a little cover on here that you have to take off. It's disposable, or you can keep it in case, like if you're going to be using the stick welder on a regular basis, and you may want to hang on to this so that this always stays covered. My shop, this will be plugged in all the time. This only goes in one way. Maybe. There we go. Okay, so I got that screwed in. That's nice and tight. Wasn't too bad to put that together. And when you're doing the flux core welding, your ground will get plugged into the positive. So there's one thing that is different from your normal MIG mix welding. When you do your MIG mix welding, we will switch that back over to negative. But for flux core, that goes into your ground, or into your positive spot. It does explain that in the instructions here. These instructions are fairly simple and very basic to read. So anything that you need to know about this welder is in the instructions. I have found it in there. Okay, now that we got that set up for flux core, let's go ahead and install our flux core wire here. Now there's two different setups. One is for flux core, one is for your MIG mix. So this is a smaller roll that I have here, which is for the flux core. So you have to unscrew this nut right here, which is a 1/2 inch. So you have to unscrew this. And you take this large piece off, which is for the large roll. You can set that aside. And then make sure you have your wire going the correct way. Always make sure that you clip your wire so that you're nice and straight. You don't want no bends or curves in it. Put your washer on, your spring on, your washer, and then put your nut back on. Now these wheels, they give you two different wheels. One is for your flux core and one is for your gas mix wire. The one for the flux core has teeth in it. When you look inside these lines, these are smooth. These have teeth in them. So you want the teeth for your flux core. You're gonna fish it into this wire here, or into this little tube. And this little tube comes through here, and there's another little tube here. So you got to make sure you fish it into both tubes, like so. And you flip your wheel down. This locks you in place. And then this here is your pressure that it puts onto your wire here. So you can tighten that up and make sure that you got enough wire feed or wire pressure. So next, let's go ahead and turn it on, see the adjustments that we need for this, and we'll weld a piece together. Okay, now that we got our wire in here and we got our wheel selected, make sure that you have your wheel set up for the correct wire. If you don't, it will throw a code. Then you come around here and there is this wire that'll be hanging here when you get this machine. It is attached to the machine, it don't ever leave. When you are using your flux core, this goes into the negative terminal here, and your ground goes into your positive. So that is for flux core welding. Make sure that you stick this in on your negative side there. So they do give you two different tips. The tip that was in the whip when it came out of the box was too small for the .035 flux core welding wire that we are using. But the extra tip that they gave us in the bag was the right size. So I did have to switch that out. And I think we are ready to test it. Let's switch the mode here. We were last on MMA, which is stick welding. Click the mode button, it'll go down to lift TIG, MIG mag, MIG mix, flux core. When you get to flux core, it has 2T, or you can hold this button for 5 seconds, let off, it'll switch you over to 4T. I am a 2T guy. 2T is you squeeze the trigger to weld, you let off the trigger to stop. 4T is you squeeze the trigger to start welding, and it will weld until you squeeze that trigger to shut it off. So if you have a foot-long weld that you have to do, you may want to use the 4T, and it'll automatically weld it for you. All you got to do is worry about moving and doing your weld properly. And then when you're done, you squeeze the trigger, and it'll shut itself off. I am a 2T guy. I like to have full control over what is going on, so I will be using that. I think we are ready to test this and see how it does. Okay, so we have our dial here on the right. When you're doing the flux core 2T welding, this is your wire. The lowest that you can go is 14 volts, and then 2.0 on your wire speed. As you crank this to the right, you can see your numbers go up, and it will go all the way up to 21.8 volts and 12.0 on the wire speed. So we're going to turn this down somewhere in the middle. Let's go down to, we'll go down to 16 volts. There is no 16 volts. 16.1. And we have our piece of metal here that we're going to try welding. You can see I already ran a test on here just to see. We are going to make sure that we have a good ground on here. And we will go ahead and we will lay a weld, and we'll see how this does. Quite a bit of splatter there. It cleans up a little bit there with the wire wheel or the wire brush, and you can see that that is a nice, good, clean weld there. And I am on 16.1 volts. This is 1/8 inch steel. We got good heat all the way to the back. You can see that we don't, on 16.1 volts, we don't quite have penetration there. We are close. You can see my first test that we did here, which I had it up higher, I think around 18 volts. And you can see that we got penetration through to the back. So that is just something that you're going to have to play with those adjustments and see where your happy spot is and find out where you want to weld. But I think that that is a good weld. It looks pretty. I'm happy with that. I wish there was a little less splatter, but that could be my wire. My wire is super old. I've had that for a long time. It could be that. It could be just because this is the first time I've used this as a machine. You know, some fine tuning and a little adjustment, you might be able to get that splatter down. So I am happy with that. That looks good. Again, if I was outside and had to weld a frame together on a trailer, or maybe weld a fence pole together out in the wind, I do have the fan blowing behind me. That is a great thing with Flux Core. The shielded wire has the gas right in it, which means that you can weld in the wind. So if you're outside working on the farm and it is a windy day and you have to weld, Flux Core is definitely what you want to be using. When you go over to a MIG mix and you have gas coming out, that wind will blow your gas away and you will not have a decent weld. That's where this stuff really comes in handy. Okay, here we're gonna test. This is some thinner metal. That last test that we did was 1/8 inch. This is 18 gauge sheet metal. This is what I use when I'm working on cars for body repair. So this is a little test for that. Now on body repair, I wouldn't suggest using Flux Core, but that's where I got started. My very first welder was a Flux Core welder, and I learned to work on cars with that. It's a little more tricky, but if you're starting out at this and you're starting with a Flux Core welder, you're gonna need to be able to weld sheet metal together. So let's see if this does sheet metal. Now I have turned this down as low as it'll go. So we're at the 14 volts and the 2.0 on the wire speed, and let's see how this does. Okay, those are some pretty good looking welds. Now when you're welding sheet metal together, you definitely don't want it on 4T, and you just do little zaps one after another, tacking it together. They call it stacking tacks. If you were to just squeeze the trigger and hold it down, you would blow holes in this. So you just want little tacks, just little squeezes of the trigger, and you just keep moving down the sheet metal and get it welded together. We have good penetration through the back. You can see the penetration there. So this piece of metal is on there. It's good. I am happy with that. So if you are a beginner welder in your garage at home and you're running to work on your car and you don't have a lot of money to go spend on getting a gas setup, Flux Core will work for the sheet metal as well. So again, I am happy with that. Let's move on to the next thing. Okay, now that we've finished our testing with the Flux Core wire, we are going to do some testing with the MIG mix. So we need to switch out the wire from the Flux Core to your standard MIG mix wire. So let's go ahead and open this guy back up. I'm gonna turn this on for a second. And we're just gonna squeeze some wire out of here for me to grab onto. We'll shut that back off. Just waiting for the welder to power down before I stick my hands in here. There we go. So we're gonna clip this here. So we can put this wire back away. I will keep this welder set up as a MIG mix. So this will go back in my stash. Now that we pulled this wire out here, we can undo this guy, and then we can pull our wire out. So we have, this guy is for the bigger spool. So we gotta put him back on. So this is a big roll. This is an 11-pound roll. I believe these little guys are like 2 or 3 pounds. I think it has a weight on it. You don't necessarily have to get the big rolls. You can get the little rolls. I choose to use the big rolls because I weld on a regular basis here, and these big rolls last a long time. So the smaller rolls you can pick up at auto parts stores, hardware stores. You can get them on Amazon. These big rolls I believe you can get on Amazon as well, or you can get these from your local welding supply store. Just make sure this fits on there. Yep. So you can see that there's this little peg on this guy, and there's this hole in here. So you're gonna line that up, and then this whole thing will spin with the wheel. This is reverse thread, so when you're going to screw it on, it's not your normal thread. Now this is a different gauge wire than our flux core that we were using. So we need to switch out this wheel. Now these two wheels, like I explained before, this one has teeth in it. That is strictly for the flux core. This one is smooth. That is for the MIG mix. And I believe that we are going to be using the .08 there. Is going to be the correct size. I'm gonna check it with what I clipped off of there, but we'll see. We'll turn this on. Almost forgot about that. We will have to switch our tip back to a smaller tip, I believe. That is the wrong. The other side, and let's hope that one of these they give us works. That's an issue. Well, we got the .023 in there, and we don't have the wheel for that size. Now, we did look it up. They do sell other wheels that would go down to the 023, but everything that we've seen in the instruction manual, it only goes as low as .030. So I have a spool of .030 here. We're going to switch that out from the 023 to the 30, and we'll try again, and hopefully this time we'll be good to go. So this 023 works in my other welders, so not a big deal that it doesn't work in here. You just gotta, trial and error, figure out what works, and make sure we cut our little kink off. So it says on these wheels 0.08, 1.0. 0.08 is should be the 0.30. If you Google the breakdown of that, it will give you the breakdown through Google. I don't know metric to standard off the top of my head. I went the other way. 1.0 turn this back on and let's see if this one gets us any further. We got the wire in. What I think was happening was it was getting hung up right here. I loosened everything up and I fed the wire in by hand pretty far, and then we put it all together, and that now it works. So I think it was just getting stuck in there. It happens. Now what we're gonna do, this other tip that originally came with in this piece when it came from the store is the .030 tip. So we got that in now. Put this back in, put this back on. This is just a push on, it does not screw on. Some welders are screw on, some are push on. This is actually a push on one. Now I think that we got the wire all set up. I think we can hook up the gas now, and we'll see how this does with the MIG mix. Just so that everybody knows, this gas that we are running here is 75-25. That's 75% argon, 25% carbon. So if you're going to go get a bottle, they have different kinds. This is just your basic MIG welding bottle. If you're going to the gas supply store or to the welding supply store, they know basically what you need to do if you just tell them what you're trying to do. But 75-25 is your normal stuff that you're going to run when you're welding steel. Let's turn on the welder. We're still on Flux Core, so we need to hit our mode button, and we need to get to the MIG mix, which is here. We still want the 2T, and our parameters on this. They are the same as the Flux Core. So nothing changed from MIG mix to Flux Core as far as your adjustments go. We will start at the low setting and we'll try it with some sheet metal. Now you can hear the gas come out of the gun there. Hopefully you guys can hear that. And it does have like a timer on there. The gas doesn't stop as soon as you let your finger off the trigger. It goes for like another 5 seconds afterwards. And that's a cooling feature. If you hold the gun at your weld when you're done, that gas helps that weld cool and maybe stops from bubbles happening. If you ever see any porosity in a weld where you get a bubble in it and whatnot, that should help you maybe with a little bit cleaner of a weld. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna hook up our ground to this, and we're just gonna put a weld right next to our Flux Core weld, and we'll be able to compare the two and see how much cleaner of a look it is with the gas on there. I'm gonna turn up the volts a little bit. That seems weak. We're gonna go up to 16.1. What? What did you say?
Did you look? Can I look?
Yeah, what did you say?
Did you switch the ground and unplug that other thing?
Oh, I sure didn't.
Okay, we need to stop.
Okay. We started to weld this, and right away I realized that something wasn't right. And we forgot to switch our cables here. So this one and this one gets switched for gas. So now we should be set up. Here's our weld. It was welding. It just wasn't, something was wrong. And that's what we're doing. We did have it set up for the Flux Core. We needed to switch it. So now that we got that switched, let's go ahead and test this again and see if it works a little better. So we're gonna go back down to the 14 and we'll try that and see if it's any better. I'm gonna turn this up a little bit. I'm at 15.9. Okay, once we got everything situated and figured out, that's a very nice weld, very hot. You can see we got good penetration on the back. It's this lower one down here. So you can see from your Flux Core to your gas how much cleaner and prettier of a weld it is. Way less welding splatter. A little more heat in it, just better penetration and flow with the gas. So once we got it figured out, that's a very nice weld. I'm very happy with that. So let's go ahead and we'll switch over to the 1/8 inch and we will do a test on that. We'll do a couple welds. I'm going to do in between our Flux Core. This is Flux Core, this is Flux. We'll do in between those. I am going to, we are going to turn up the voltage a little bit. On that sheet metal, I had it set at 16.5. So we are going to turn this up. We will go to, let's go to 18. Let's try that. Very nice weld, way too much wire speed. So we're going to turn this back down. We'll try 17 and see how that goes. Sounded much better, still way too much wire speed. So we're going to go down to the 16.5 that we were doing the sheet metal. We'll try that. We're getting better. I'm going to drop it lower. We're going to go to 15.9. Okay, that's looking pretty good. It was sounding good. You want to listen for that sound of like bacon frying, and I think that that's about where we were at. I'm gonna make a couple more passes just on the side here, and just we'll see how that does. That still seems like too much wire to me, but the way that it's welding, seems like the wire speed is not fast enough. Let's try that again. I dropped it down to 14.4. We'll test that, see how that does. Now those are just on top of something. We're not trying to weld two pieces together. Got good heat penetration through the back, but that still just seems like there's too much wire there. But I could tell by the way that it's welding, we don't have enough wire speed. I think this is just where you're going to have to sit and play with it and find where you're happy at. So that's a good looking weld. I'm much happier with that than those two. And that's at 15.9. So I think that 15.9 is going to be the happy spot, happy area. I'm gonna go up to 16.1. We'll just see how that does. Or not. Okay, that started looking better as it goes. You know, this is a smart welder. It's self-adjusting. So it seemed like the farther that we went in, the better the weld got. So I think that 15.9, 16.1 area is where we're going to be at when welding thick, heavy steel. So let me clean this up with the wire wheel, and you guys can kind of see the difference between the welds. Okay, we got this cleaned up with the wire wheel just to take a look at it. So you can see up at the top here, we were around the 18 area on the volts. Way too much wire speed. So we dropped down to 17. We still had, you know, a little too much wire speed, but we were getting better. By the end here, we were at the 15.9. Then we came over here and we welded just on the solid steel plate, not trying to fill in between two pieces. And you could see that the 217 area, too much wire speed. We dropped down to 16.1. It was looking much better. 15.9 was even looking better. So, you know, I think the Flux Core, we are definitely getting a nice flat clean weld there. That's what I would like to get this to. You can see all the splatter in there from the Flux Core compared to no splatter from the gas. So if we can get the gas to be down at that, I'll be happy with it. It's just going to take some playing to get to that point and find our happy spot. And you know, our sheet metal, that looks awesome there. I'm super happy with both of those. So now let's put this thing to work in the shop, and let's work on a couple of things that I need to get done around here. Instead of just a couple of test pieces, we're actually going to put something together. Okay, we still got it set at the 15.9. We're going to give that a go and try that. And I do want to let you know that this pole that we are using is a piece of conduit. It's what you use for home electrical stuff, and it is galvanized. You do not want to breathe that stuff. I do have fans facing at us that is going to blow any gases from this pipe away from me. So if you're going to be doing something similar to this, just be cautious and be safe. Need to get that a little better. There we go, I'm happier with that one. Okay, let's remove our magnets. Try and get an even better weld yet this time. Okay, by our third weld there, we had a really nice weld going. So it's just going to take some getting used to. I am not used to these new smart welders, but those will hold. Let's see, do we have some good penetration on the bottom? Yep, we got good We got some heat marks down there, so we got some penetration. I think we are good to go. So I may go back and I may clean those welds up a little bit later when I'm a little more used to this welder, but I don't think that those are going to go anywhere, and we have a new camera stand, so I'm happy with that. Now the next thing that I want to test this on is we have a fender over here on this car behind us that we need to weld up a couple things on there. I'm not going to go crazy and spend the next hour working on it, but let's just do a couple of tests on it and see how it does actually on a vehicle. Okay, we got a couple things to test out on this Monte Carlo. We're going to weld up one of these holes and see how it does, and then we have some cuts in the metal down here that we need to start tacking that together and see how this does. This is a MIG mix. We're using 7525. We have the volts set at 15.1, and this is your MIG mix standard weld. If you guys are interested in seeing more of this build, check out Monty Mondays. Every Monday we post a video of work being done on this Monte Carlo. So go check those out. I'm going to use a blowgun to cool my welds in between so that I don't warp my fender any more than it already is. Let's see how this does. I'm going to start up here with these holes up here. These holes used to be where an emblem was that said Monte Carlo, and we are getting rid of those. So let's check it out. Okay, so that worked great. You can see that we welded up this hole here. I didn't use any backer with it. I was able to weld it up. We didn't burn anything. We didn't make the hole any bigger than it needed to be. And we also came down here and we welded up these cuts. This part of the fender actually used to have a chrome cladding that went down the bottom, and there was a body line here that we are no longer running the chrome, so that body line needed to go. So we cut that, we hammered everything flat, and now we're welding it back up. And that tacked that together beautifully. I'm super happy with that. I think with a little planing and a little adjusting, I'll have this welder working great. So very happy with that. Okay, so I ran it through all the tests, and kind of tell you guys what I think of it, and you know what we did and what we went through, and maybe a couple items that you might want to pick up along with this. So out of the box, I'm happy with the weight of the machine, how it feels. The handle feels good, the ground feels good. It's a nice little machine. I definitely like the digital display. It's big enough that I can see it in my old age. So the first thing that we tried out was the stick welding, and I was very happy with the way that the stick welder worked. You can see that we welded together some very rusty pipes that have been sitting outside for years and years and years, with just minimal cleanup with the wire brush. I did not use any power tools, no grinders, no wire wheels, no nothing. I just strictly used the wire brush to clean that up and was able to weld it with the stick welder. So if you're out on the farm or out somewhere on the job and you got to weld something up with the quick, I think that stick welder did a great job and worked as intended. So the next thing that we did was that we came in and we tested flux core welding. So flux core welding is for the beginner, or again maybe somebody that's out on the farm having to fix a fence down 8 acres on their property, and you don't want to carry your bottle or your gas setup all the way down the road to weld this up. Flux core works great. That is great for welding in wind as well. So if you got to fix a trailer outside and it's a windy day, flux core is the way to go. So once we got the flux dialed in and we were able to get a couple of decent welds in here on the flux between some 1/8 inch steel plate and some 18 gauge sheet metal, I was very happy with the way that the flux worked. And the next thing that we did was we did MIG mix. We did a 75-25 argon carbon dioxide mixture, and once we got the bottle set up and we got everything dialed in, we were able to test that out. It's going to take a little getting used to, but our welds came out very clean. You can see our flux core has a lot of splatter around it. That's normal for flux core. Once you get into the gas welding, you get rid of that splatter. It makes for a much cleaner, hotter burn of a weld. So we went from testing on a couple pieces of some scrap metal that we had here to actually trying to put the thing to work as just something that we needed to do in the shop. So we built a camera stand here. This holds my GoPro. We just got an 1/8 inch steel plate at the bottom with a piece of 3/4 inch conduit welded to it. And it did a good job. I need to make a couple adjustments and get used to using this welder, but I think it did very well. And then we also came over here to the Monte Carlo and we welded up a hole where an emblem used to sit, and we spot welded some cuts on the fender, and I'm very happy with that. So a couple of essentials that I think you'll need when you get this welder. Of course, whether you're doing flux core or you're going to do gas, you need to get wire. It doesn't come with wires, so you need to get wire for it. It's 0.030 and up. It goes up a couple more, 0.035, 0.40 and 0.45 I believe is what comes with this machine. If you're doing stick welding, you're going to need sticks. If you're doing the gas welding, you're going to need a bottle and a regulator. I think you're definitely going to need yourself a wire brush. This is actually a welding wire brush. You can get a wire brush from anywhere at the hardware store. This one's actually welding. It has a chisel part on it for you to knock the slag off of stick welding when you're doing that. You're going to need yourself a set of side cutters or actual welding pliers that have cutters on it. A couple of magnets would always be nice when you're doing some welding stuff. We have some gauges here that make sure stuff is straight when you're welding it. I talked about when we were doing the fender having a backer for the hole that you're welding up. This is a magnetic backer. This top plate is made of copper, goes behind the hole. When you're welding up, you can weld to copper and it doesn't stick. If you don't have money for one of these, you can just use a piece of copper pipe from home water systems. You smash it flat and you can weld to this. It does not stick to the copper, but gives you a good backing that you can create an arc on. So those might be a couple things that you need. Definitely going to need a welding helmet, and you're going to need some gloves. Okay, so the Se-fas-pee 250D welder, 6-in-1. What I think of it. All in all, I'm pretty happy with it. Everything that we threw at it, from stick welding to flux core to MIG mix, it did everything that I needed it to do. I think that it's a good welder. It is one of those new smart technology welders, which I am not used to. I am used to just old trusty, turn it on, you have power and wire speed, and you get it done. Another thing that was a little odd and something that I may need to get used to, or maybe it's something with this machine that is different from old trusty, is there is a slow start to this machine. If you just squeeze the trigger, the wire comes out very slow, and then as it starts to get into it, it speeds up. And I noticed when we were welding that it kind of did the same thing, that the welds were a little taller and a little thicker at the start of the weld, and as you started welding more, they got tighter and cleaner and more low profile weld, which if you're trying to do some professional welding where each weld has to be beautiful, I could find that being difficult to accomplish with it starting out kind of a bigger, thicker weld and then getting cleaner along the way. Now, maybe that's just some learning to do on my part, or maybe some adjustment on the welder, again, which would be my part, my preference. It's going to take a little bit of time to play along with it and get it dialed in. But that was a couple of things that I found odd with the welder, and something that I'm definitely not used to. One thing that I noticed with this is, being that it's smart technology, if there's anything going wrong with the welder, like it doesn't have a good ground, or your wire's getting hung up somewhere, sometimes it'll get stuck in the tip. Maybe you don't have your wheel tighted down enough in there and it's slipping, it will throw an error code. And then you have to shut the welder off. You have to let everything reset itself. You have to turn the welder back on. You have to track down whatever it was, whether it was a ground or maybe the wire was stuck in the tip. You have to track that down, find out what it was, fix that problem before you try welding again. If you did not fix that problem, it's going to throw an error code right away again. Old trusty welders that are just on and go, you don't have that issue. So if you're not ready to have to maybe make some adjustments or troubleshoot when you're having problems, I could see this maybe being a little frustrating, especially for somebody who is set in their ways and used to an old welder, or maybe somebody who's a beginner who has never welded before. I could see it maybe being a little frustrating, but once you get it figured out and you know what is causing those problems to throw that code, it's super easy to get by that and get the welder working, and then once it's working, it works great. I'm super happy with that. One thing that maybe I would like to see in the future se-fas-pee add would be maybe a regulator. You're giving people the hose to hook up gas to it, but there's no regulator to regulate that. That is something that you can pick up from your local welding store, or you can pick it up on Amazon. But it would be nice to maybe see se-fas-pee in the future provide that. Another thing would be a wire wheel or a wire brush for cleaning up your welds and your slag from stick welding. I think that should be something that comes with the welder. Another thing was the short cord on it. I can understand having to run an extension cord. If I have to run an extension cord from one side of the shop to the other, I totally get that. I totally understand it. But with the cord that is off the back of the machine, it would have left me stuck in the corner trying to do this video had I not had an extension cord for it. So maybe a little longer cord, wire brush, and your regulator for your bottle. Would be nice to see them provide that with it. We are going to be doing a part 2 to this video. We are going to be picking up the TIG portion of this machine, and we are going to be testing that out. Now, I have never done any TIG welding in my life, so don't laugh when we make this video. It's going to be a learning experience, just as it was trying to learn this new smart technology machine. We will drop a link below the video for the TIG part of this machine, because it does not come with the machine, but se-fas-pee gave us the link, so we'll provide that down below. Also, this machine does not provide the spool gun accessories for this. They did not give me a link for the spool gun accessories, but any Euro connector spool gun should work on this machine. So you can look those up on Amazon and find one that'll work with the machine. So all in all, I am happy with the machine. I have been welding 20 plus years. It was a little bit of a learning curve and learning experience, and I think I still have some learning to do with this machine, but I would recommend it for the beginner or the pro welder. I think it gets the job done, and I think it's definitely something that I will keep in my shop, and we will learn and grow with this machine and be able to put out better work with this machine. So I will see you in part 2 with the TIG welding, possibly the spool gun. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, and check out our Monte Carlo videos on Mondays. I'm out. Have a good day.